He wasn't a hacker. He wasn't a mathematician. He wasn't even a college graduate. He was a dropout, a broke 24-year-old living in a tiny studio apartment and delivering groceries to survive. But one night while waiting near the employee entrance of a Las Vegas casino, he overheard a tiny piece of information, something the casino's own employees didn't think twice about, a flaw in the system so small it seemed harmless. 6 months later, that same flaw allowed him to quietly siphon $52 million from casinos across 3 states, without touching a machine, hacking a system, or breaking a lock. This is the story of how one man's obsession, a critical oversight, and perfect timing came together to create one of the most sophisticated casino heists in American history. A heist that didn't rely on violence, technology, or insider help. Just patience, observation, and the ability to see what everyone else missed. Before we get into it, don't forget to like and subscribe, and hit hype to boost this episode. Drop your city or country below. Let's get into it. His name was Ethan Cole, 24 years old, nobody special, nobody dangerous, nobody you'd look at twice. He'd started engineering school 3 years earlier with big dreams and a full scholarship. His high school teachers had called him gifted. His SAT scores were near perfect. He'd won a state science fair with a project on predictive algorithms. Everyone expected him to graduate with honors, get recruited by some tech company, make his parents proud. But calculus destroyed him. Not because he wasn't smart enough, he was, but because he stopped going to class. He'd gotten obsessed with understanding how casino security systems worked, spending nights in the library reading white papers on RFID technology and asset tracking systems instead of studying derivatives and integrals. He failed calculus twice, lost his scholarship, and dropped out halfway through sophomore year. His parents were devastated. His father, a construction foreman, had worked double shifts to help with expenses. His mother had bragged to everyone at church about her son, the engineer. When Ethan dropped out, they stopped calling. His younger sister blocked him on social media. His friends from school moved on without him, graduating, getting internships, building careers while he fell further and further behind. Now he lived in a rented room behind a mechanic's shop on the outskirts of Las Vegas, in a part of the city tourists never see. The walls were thin enough to hear every wrench drop, every engine roar, every argument between the mechanics. The room had a mattress on the floor, a mini fridge that buzzed too loud, and a window that looked out at a chain-link fence. The rent was $400 a month, and some weeks he could barely scrape it together. He worked delivery gigs, groceries, takeout, anything that paid. He'd wake up at 5 in the morning, check 3 different apps, and spend 12 hours driving around the city dropping off food to people who never looked him in the eye. On good days, he made $80. On bad days, $40. His phone buzzed constantly with debt collectors demanding payments on student loans he'd never finished using. Automated voices, threatening letters. He ignored them all. What were they going to take? He had nothing. Ethan Cole was invisible, harmless, ordinary. The type of guy casinos don't even glance at when he walks through their doors, carrying a bag of takeout or standing near the employee entrance waiting for a customer. But Ethan had one talent that nobody knew about. It wasn't math, though he understood it well enough. It wasn't charm. He barely spoke to anyone. It was obsession. Once something got into his head, he couldn't let it go. He'd pull it apart, examine every angle, study every detail until every last screw was exposed, and he understood exactly how it worked. In high school, he'd taken apart his neighbor's lawnmower engine just to see how it functioned, then reassembled it perfectly. In college, before he dropped out, he'd spent 3 weeks reverse engineering the campus parking lot's automated payment system until he understood every line of code. His professors called it a waste of potential. His therapist, during the 2 sessions his parents forced him to attend, called it obsessive-compulsive tendencies. Ethan just called it curiosity. That obsession was about to make him $52 million. It happened on a Tuesday night in March. A cold desert wind whipped through the streets as Ethan pulled up to the employee entrance of the Bellagio in his beat-up Honda Civic. The engine rattled as he shifted into park. He was delivering Thai food, an order for someone named Marcus in facilities management. $32 with tip. He grabbed the plastic bag from the passenger seat, the containers still warm, and walked toward the loading dock entrance. He'd been to this entrance dozens of times. The Bellagio employees ordered takeout constantly. Late shifts, double shifts, workers too tired to go anywhere else. Ethan had memorized the route. Through the parking structure, past the dumpsters, up the concrete stairs to the metal door marked "Employees Only." He pressed the buzzer and waited. The desert air was cooling rapidly. March nights in Las Vegas dropped fast after sunset, and Ethan pulled his thin jacket tighter around himself. He could hear muffled sounds from inside. Voices, machinery, the constant hum of a building that never slept. Nobody answered the buzzer. He waited another minute, then another. His phone showed 10:47 p.m. The customer had requested delivery by 10:45. He'd be lucky to get a tip at all now. He pressed the buzzer again. Just as he was about to call the customer, the metal door behind him swung open. Two floor managers walked out, still mid-argument, completely ignoring him. One was a heavy-set man in his 50s with a gray mustache and tired eyes. The other was younger, maybe 30, with gelled hair and an irritated expression. "The asset tracker keeps glitching," the older man said, his voice carrying across the loading dock. "If the tag doesn't ping, the system auto-logs the last known location. We had 3 trays show up in 2 places yesterday." "2 places, Marcus." "It's fine, Rick," the younger man replied, annoyed, dismissive. "The auditor only checks the barcode, not the RFID. Nobody's going to notice a few missed pings. The logs match. That's all corporate cares about. I'm just saying it's sloppy. What happens when someone actually checks the physical count against the digital count? Nobody checks. That's my point. The system auto-reconciles every night. If the barcode scan says it's there, the system assumes it's there. We've been running this setup for 3 years. 0 issues. Until there's an issue. There won't be. Trust me. I've got bigger problems than ghost chips on a tracking system. Like the fact that half my floor staff called in sick tonight." The younger manager pulled out a cigarette, lit it, took a long drag. "You worry too much, Rick," he said, exhaling smoke into the cold air. "System's been glitching since we upgraded 6 months ago. It says it's a metal interference thing. Nothing we can do about it. Just let the barcode do its job and stop losing sleep over it." The older manager shook his head, muttered something under his breath, and walked toward the parking lot. The younger one followed, still smoking, still complaining about short-staffed shifts and corporate expectations. The door slammed shut. The voices faded. Ethan stood there, frozen, the bag of Thai food growing cold in his hand. He knew those words. Asset tracker, RFID, last known location, barcode, auto-reconciles. He'd worked part-time in a warehouse during his first year of college, scanning inventory, moving pallets, learning the systems. He knew exactly what a last known location flaw meant. When an item wasn't scanned properly at the right checkpoint, the computer system would still show it as being wherever it was last recorded, even if it had been physically moved. Even if it was gone, the system trusted the last known data point until new data overrode it. In a warehouse full of cheap electronics, keyboards, mice, phone cases, it didn't matter much. A few items showed up in the wrong location for a day or two, then got corrected during the next scan cycle. But in a casino, where chips worth thousands or tens of thousands of dollars move constantly, where millions in assets flowed through dozens of checkpoints every single day, a flaw like that was lethal. If the RFID tags failed to ping, if the system auto-logged the last known location, if the auditors only checked the barcode logs and not the physical count, Ethan's mind started racing. His heart hammered in his chest. He felt the way he used to feel in high school when he'd figured out a complex physics problem. That electric rush of understanding, pieces clicking into place. There was a gap, a blind spot, a window of time when chips could exist in 2 places at once, physically in one location, digitally in another. The door buzzed. A tired-looking kitchen worker opened it, took the Thai food, signed the receipt without looking at Ethan, and closed the door again. Ethan stood there for another 30 seconds, staring at the metal door, his mind running simulations, building scenarios, calculating possibilities. Then he walked back to his car, got in, and drove home through the neon-lit streets of Las Vegas. He couldn't sleep that night. Every time he closed his eyes, his brain replayed the conversation, auto-logs the last known location. Nobody checks the physical count. The logs match. That's all they care about. He got out of bed at 3 in the morning, opened his laptop and started researching. RFID technology, casino chip tracking systems, barcode inventory management, metal interference with radio frequency signals. By sunrise, he'd read everything he could find: technical white papers, security industry forums, casino management software documentation. And by sunrise, he knew he had to find out more. Not because he was planning anything, not yet, just because he needed to know. He needed to see if the flaw was real, if it was exploitable, if it was as big as he thought it was. That obsession, that need to pull apart the problem and understand every piece of it, was the same thing that had destroyed his college career. This time, it was going to make him rich. Ethan returned to the Bellagio the next night, and the night after that, and the night after that. He stopped taking delivery orders near the Strip. Instead, he'd drive to the Bellagio around 9 p.m., park his car in the public garage, and walk to various positions around the employee areas. Sometimes he'd sit in the food court with a cheap coffee, watching the flow of workers during shift changes. Other times he'd stand near the loading dock, pretending to wait for a rideshare passenger. Once he even bought a sandwich at the employee cafeteria, sitting in the corner with earbuds in, observing everything. Nobody questioned him. Nobody even looked twice. He was just another face in a building full of thousands of people. The first week, he focused on mapping the routes. Where did the chips move? Who moved them? When? He learned that high-value casino chips, the ones worth $5,000, $10,000, $25,000 each, were stored in a secure cage on the lower level. It was a vault-like room with reinforced doors, camera coverage, and armed security. Only authorized personnel could enter, and every transaction was logged, double-checked, triple-verified. But the chips couldn't stay in the cage. They had to move. Dealers needed them for high roller tables. Cash cages needed them for exchanges. VIP hosts needed them for special players. And when one casino ran low on certain denominations, they had to be transported between properties: Bellagio to MGM Grand, Aria to Caesar's Palace. Constant movement across the city. That movement created vulnerability. On his fifth night of surveillance, Ethan watched a security guard wheel a cart through the back corridor. 3 trays of chips, stacked neatly, covered with a transparent lid. The guard stopped at a checkpoint, a doorway equipped with both a barcode scanner and an RFID reader mounted on the frame. The guard lifted a handheld scanner, aimed it at the barcode on top of the cart, heard a beep, and checked his clipboard. Satisfied, he continued through the doorway toward the high-limit salon. Ethan watched the RFID reader mounted above the door. A small LED indicator, barely noticeable unless you were looking for it. It should have blinked green when the chips passed through, confirming that the RFID tags had been detected. It didn't blink at all. Ethan felt his pulse quicken. He waited 15 minutes, then casually walked past the checkpoint, glancing up at the RFID reader. He saw what he'd suspected: metal shelving units lined both sides of the corridor, stacked with equipment, supplies, heavy machinery. The kind of metal density that would absolutely interfere with radio frequency signals. The RFID tags had failed to ping, but the barcode had been scanned. The guard had confirmed the count on his clipboard. As far as the system knew, those chips had passed through the checkpoint successfully and were continuing on their documented route. In reality, the system had no idea where those chips were. It was relying on the barcode scan and the last known location data. Ethan spent the next 2 weeks confirming his theory. He identified 6 different checkpoints where RFID signals consistently failed. Metal equipment storage areas, corridors with electrical panels, service elevators with steel-reinforced walls. He learned the timing of shift changes: 7 a.m., 3:00 p.m., and 11:00 p.m. During these windows, the movement of chips increased dramatically. Guards rushed to complete transfers before logging out. Paperwork piled up. Verification became less thorough. He studied the guards themselves. Who was careful? Who was sloppy? Who checked every barcode twice? Who just glanced at the clipboard and kept moving? One guard, a man in his 60s with a pronounced limp, barely looked at the barcodes at all during late-night shifts. Just scanned, beeped, moved on, probably counting down the days to retirement. Another guard, a younger woman with sharp eyes and military posture, checked everything twice. She'd pause at checkpoints, verify the RFID ping, cross-reference her clipboard, Sometimes even opened the tray lids to count manually. Ethan noted all of this in a small notebook he kept encrypted on his laptop. Guard names, shift schedules, checkpoint locations, RFID failure zones. On his third week of surveillance, he made a critical discovery. He was sitting in the employee cafeteria, nursing a lukewarm coffee, when he overheard two IT technicians talking at the table behind him. The RFID upgrade was supposed to fix the ping issues, one said frustrated. We'd spent 200 grand on new readers. Yeah, well, it didn't, the other replied. Metal interference is metal interference. Can't fix physics with better antennas. So what do we tell them when they ask why chips are showing up in two locations? We tell them it's a known issue. The system auto-corrects during nightly reconciliation. As long as the barcode audit matches, we're good. But what if someone steals something during that gap? How? The chips are under surveillance. Armed guards everywhere. You'd have to be invisible to pull something off. They laughed and moved on to complaining about their boss. Ethan sat very still, his cold coffee forgotten. Auto corrects during nightly reconciliation. As long as the barcode audit matches, we're good. That meant the system didn't update in real time. It waited until the end of each day, compiled all the data, cross-referenced locations, and only then flagged discrepancies, if it found any. That gave him 24 hours, maybe more. 24 hours where chips could be physically missing but digitally present. By the end of week 4, Ethan had built a complete map of the system's weaknesses. He knew exactly where the blind spots were. He knew when the shifts changed. He knew which guards to avoid and which ones barely paid attention. He knew how the audit system worked and what it checked for. He understood the whole machine, and he understood how to break it. But understanding wasn't enough. He needed to test it. He needed to see if what he'd theorized in his head would actually work in reality. He needed to steal something. He bought a casino uniform online. Black slacks, white shirt, basic name tag holder. No logo, nothing specific. Just generic enough to blend in. He didn't need a security badge to access the loading dock. He'd watched long enough to know that. You just needed confidence, a clipboard, the right posture. On a Thursday night in late April, during the busiest shift change of the week, Ethan walked through the employee entrance of the Bellagio wearing his uniform. "Forgot my badge in my car," he muttered to the security guard at the door, holding up his clipboard and rolling his eyes. The guard waved him through without looking up. Ethan's hands were shaking, but he kept walking. Steady pace, eyes forward, like he belonged. He moved through the back corridors following the route he'd memorized. Left at the storage hallway, right past the loading zone, straight toward the secure corridor that led to the chip cage. He waited near a metal shelving unit, pretending to check something on his clipboard. A security guard appeared, wheeling a cart with 3 trays of chips, high-value chips, $25,000 plaques, 50 of them per tray. The guard scanned the barcode at the checkpoint, logged the transfer, and continued toward the high-limit room. Ethan watched the RFID scanner. No green light. The tags didn't ping. The moment the guard turned the corner, Ethan stepped forward. He lifted one tray from the cart, smooth, confident, like he was supposed to, and carried it 10 feet to an electrical cabinet recessed into the wall. He placed the tray behind the cabinet, tucked into the shadows. 30 seconds. That's all it took. He walked away, heart pounding so hard he thought it might explode. The system had logged those chips as in storage because the barcode had been scanned at the checkpoint, but the RFID hadn't updated. As far as the computer knew, they were still on the cart, still moving through the system. A perfect blind spot. Ethan waited 2 hours. He walked the corridors, pretended to check inventory, acted like he belonged. When the shift change chaos peaked, he returned to the electrical cabinet, retrieved the tray, and carried it out through the loading dock. Nobody stopped him. Nobody even looked. He drove to a storage unit he'd rented under a fake name, locked the chips inside, and went home. That night, he cashed out $3,000 worth through a private poker game he'd found online. Just a test, just to see if it would work. No alarms went off. No police showed up. No casino security came knocking. The system didn't know anything was missing. Over the next 6 months, Ethan Cole transformed from a nervous amateur into something else entirely. A ghost, a phantom, Someone who could walk through the most secure buildings in America and leave no trace. He refined everything. First, the disguises. He bought wigs from costume shops, grew his beard out for 3 weeks, then shaved it completely. Bought different styles of glasses, wire-rimmed, thick black frames, aviators. Changed his posture, walked with a slight hunch 1 week, stood perfectly straight the next. Wore lifts in his shoes to appear taller, then switched to flat soles. Even practiced different gaits, a slight limp, a confident stride, a tired shuffle. Second, the timing. He memorized guard rotation schedules down to the minute. He knew that the Bellagio's B-shift guard took a smoke break at 11:47 p.m. every night, leaving a 7-minute window. He knew that Caesar's Palace had skeleton crews on Monday mornings between 6 and 7 a.m. He knew that the Aria's shipping dock had blind spots in camera coverage near the loading zone entrance. He built a spreadsheet, encrypted and password protected, tracking every detail. Guard names, shift times, RFID failure zones, optimal hit windows. Third, the documentation. He created fake routing slips that looked identical to real ones. He studied the numbering systems, the authorization codes, the signature styles. He even bought a laminating machine and made fake ID badges. Not good enough to pass a close inspection, but good enough to flash quickly if someone asked. And fourth, the distribution. He never cashed out the chips directly at the casinos. That would trigger alerts, red flags, investigations. Instead, he found underground networks. The first connection came through an online poker forum. A user with the handle VegasVince82 posted regularly about high-stakes private games and hotel suites. Ethan sent a private message, carefully worded, asking if anyone was interested in buying casino chips at a discount. VegasVince82 responded within an hour. They met in a parking garage in downtown Vegas. Vegas Vince turned out to be a heavyset man in his 50s wearing a Hawaiian shirt and gold rings on every finger. "You got product?" Vegas Vince asked, not bothering with pleasantries. Ethan showed him a tray of chips, $25,000 plaques from the Bellagio. Vegas Vince picked one up, examined it under a keychain flashlight, turned it over, checked the weight. "These real?" "Completely real." "Where'd you get them?" "Does it matter?" Vegas Vince smiled, revealing a gold tooth. "No, I guess it doesn't." "What's your price?" 80 cents on the dollar. "I'll give you 70. 75. Deal." They shook hands. Vegas Vince counted out stacks of $100 bills while Ethan watched, his heart pounding but his face calm. "You got more?" Vegas Vince asked. "I have a steady supply." "Good. I got buyers all over the Southwest. High roller games, underground tournaments, guys who don't want to declare their winnings. This is good product." He pocketed the chips. "You got a phone number? I'll contact you." "Careful type, I respect that." Vegas Vince counted out the last stack of bills. "Call me when you got more. I'll always buy." Ethan left the meeting with $375,000 in cash stuffed into a backpack. He diversified after that, found other dealers through different channels. A woman named Sandra who ran a traveling poker circuit through Arizona and New Mexico. A guy called Tommy who supplied chips to illegal casinos in California. A consortium of Chinese businessmen who used chips for under-the-table transactions. He never sold to the same person twice in a row. Never established patterns, never got comfortable, and he expanded his operations beyond the Bellagio. In June, he hit the Aria. Used the same method, uniform, clipboard, confident walk during a shift change. Intercepted a cart near a steel-reinforced service elevator. 3 trays. Walked out through the loading dock. Nobody noticed. In July, he hit MGM Grand. Then Caesar's Palace. Then back to the Bellagio. He never stole too much from one location. 5 trays here, 3 trays there. Just enough to stay invisible. Each casino had slightly different procedures, but the fundamental flaw was the same everywhere. RFID tags failed near metal. Barcode scans were trusted more than physical counts. The system auto-reconciled at night, giving him a 24-hour window. It was like finding the same unlocked door in every building. By August, Ethan had stolen and liquidated over $30 million in casino chips. He still lived in the same tiny room behind the mechanic's shop, drove the same beat-up Honda, wore the same cheap clothes, but now he had storage units full of cash. Bank accounts in different names. Safety deposit boxes scattered across 3 states. He paid off his student loans and anonymous cash payments, sent money to his parents, $10,000 in an envelope with no return address. They'd been struggling for years. He knew they'd never accept money from him after the disappointment of his dropout, so he didn't sign the note. Just wrote, "From someone who appreciates everything you did." He didn't spend much on himself. Didn't buy a new car, didn't get a fancy apartment, didn't do anything that would attract attention. He'd learned from watching true crime documentaries. The criminals who got caught were always the ones who suddenly started living above their means. Ethan stayed invisible. In early September, he made his biggest hit yet, a transport between the Bellagio and a sister property across town. 20 trays of ultra-high-value chips being moved during a 6 a.m. shift change. The security was tighter. 2 guards instead of 1, armored transport vehicle, more documentation, but the RFID flaw was still there. And during that early morning chaos, with both guards focused on paperwork and loading procedures, Ethan managed to intercept 4 trays while they were being moved from the transport vehicle to a staging cart. 20 seconds. That's all it took. He walked away with $10 million in chips. That night, meeting with one of his dealers in a hotel room in Phoenix, the man counted the chips and let out a low whistle. "You're moving serious volume now," the dealer said, his gold rings glinting under the cheap lamplight. "Where are you getting all these?" "Same source." "Must be a hell of a source." "It's reliable," Ethan said calmly. "These people you're taking from, they're going to notice eventually." "Maybe. You got an exit plan?" Ethan thought about that. He'd made over $50 million in 6 months. He could stop anytime. Disappear. Live comfortably for the rest of his life. But the obsession was still there. That need to keep going. To keep pulling apart the machine. To see how far he could push it before it broke. "I'm careful," he said finally. The dealer shook his head, counting out stacks of bills. "Careful only gets you so far. Eventually luck runs out." Ethan left that meeting with $8 million in cash and a nagging thought in the back of his mind. Maybe it was time to stop. But he didn't stop. 3 more weeks, 3 more hits, another $8 million. By late September, the total reached $52 million. The casinos still thought everything was fine. The audit logs matched the barcode scans. The numbers added up on paper. It was the perfect inside job, except Ethan was never inside. He was just a ghost, moving through their blind spots, exploiting a flaw so small they didn't even know it existed. Until somebody finally looked close enough to see it. It started with a phone call. David Chen was sitting in his home office in Henderson, drinking his 3rd cup of coffee of the morning, when his phone rang. The caller ID showed Nevada Gaming Commission. "Mr. Chen, this is Director Patricia Holbrook. We have a situation." Chen had been consulting for the Gaming Commission for 3 months. Former FBI cybersecurity analyst, specialized in financial crimes and digital fraud. The casinos hired him when their own security teams couldn't figure something out. "What kind of situation?" "The kind where we need you at the Bellagio in 30 minutes. Chen arrived to find the security director's office packed with people. Casino executives in expensive suits. Security personnel with tense faces. IT directors with laptops open. Screens filled with data. "Show him," Director Holbrook said. The IT director pulled up a spreadsheet. "We ran a routine inventory audit last week. Standard procedure. Everything matched. The barcode scans, the cage logs, the transport records. Perfect alignment. So what's the problem?" "The problem," the IT director said, clicking to another screen, "is that I got curious. The new RFID system we installed 6 months ago has been glitching. Tags not pinging, locations showing duplicates, minor issues. Nothing that affected the bottom line, so nobody worried about it. Until I decided to compare the RFID live location data with the barcode audit logs, just to see where the discrepancies were." He pulled up another spreadsheet. 2 columns of numbers, they didn't match. "According to the barcode scans," the IT director said, his voice tight, "we have 143 trays of high-value chips in active circulation. But according to the RFID tags, the ones that are actually pinging location data, we only have 87 trays. Chen felt his stomach drop. 56 trays missing? 56 trays that physically exist according to the paper audit, but haven't pinged an RFID signal in weeks. Some haven't pinged in months. "What's the dollar value?" The IT director swallowed hard. $18 million from this property alone. The room went silent. Jesus Christ, someone whispered. Director Holbrook stepped forward. Mr. Chen, we've confirmed similar discrepancies at 3 other properties. Aria, MGM Grand, Caesar's Palace. The same pattern. Barcode audits say the chips are there. RFID data says they're gone. How much total? $52 million, maybe more. Chen sat down, his mind racing. This isn't a hack. This is procedural exploitation. Someone figured out that your RFID tags fail in certain locations and that your audit system trusts the barcode data over the physical count. They're intercepting chips between scanning points. That's impossible, the security director said. We have armed guards, cameras everywhere, strict protocols. It's not impossible if they look like they belong. Chen opened his laptop. Show me your security footage. Every camera angle from your high security corridors for the past 3 months, and get me employee records for everyone who had access to those areas. They spent the next 72 hours combing through footage. Chen barely slept. He lived on coffee and takeout, watching hundreds of hours of grainy security footage, looking for patterns, anomalies, anything out of place. And slowly a picture emerged. There, Chen said, pointing at the screen. That person, in the uniform. The footage showed a figure in black slacks and a white shirt, carrying a clipboard, walking through a corridor near the chip transport route. That's March 15th, Chen said. One of the days a tray went missing. Show me footage from April 3rd. Same corridor. They pulled it up. Same figure. Same uniform. Same clipboard. May 12th. Same figure. June 19th. Same figure. July 8th. Same figure. Every single day a tray went missing, that same person appeared in the footage. Always during shift changes. Always in employee areas. Always moving with purpose, like they belonged there. But there was a problem. Run facial recognition, Chen said. The IT techs ran the footage through their system. It came back with nothing. No matches in the employee database. No matches in the citywide facial recognition network. Nothing. Different facial hair every time, one tech noted. Different glasses, different posture. He's changing his appearance. Same height, though, another tech said. Same build, same gait. It's the same person. Chen leaned closer to the screen. Zoom in on the name badge. They zoomed in. The badge was visible but blurry. No readable text. It's fake, Chen said. He's wearing a costume. This guy doesn't work here. They pulled footage from other casinos. Aria, MGM Grand, Caesar's Palace. The same figure appeared in all of them. He's hitting multiple properties, Chen said. This is systematic, organized. He's been doing this for months. Director Holbrook looked at the screen, her face pale. How did we not see this? Because he understood your system better than you did, Chen said. He found a flaw nobody was looking for and exploited it perfectly. This isn't amateur work. This is someone who studied your procedures, memorized your schedules, and executed a plan with military precision. Can we identify him? Not from this footage, but we can track his pattern. Look, he only hits during specific shift changes. He avoids certain cameras. He knows exactly where your blind spots are. They released the footage to law enforcement, FBI, local police, Nevada State Gaming Board. Within 24 hours, it went public. News channels ran the story. Mystery thief steals $52 million from Vegas casinos. The footage played on loop. Grainy images of a man in a uniform, face partially obscured, walking through corridors with trays of chips. Tips flooded in. The FBI set up a hotline. Police raided locations across the city. Rental apartments, storage facilities, delivery service hubs. They brought in dozens of people for questioning. Former casino employees, delivery drivers, anyone who might fit the profile. But every lead went nowhere. Meanwhile, Ethan was watching it all unfold on the news from his room behind the mechanic's shop. He'd known this moment would come eventually, known that someone somewhere would look close enough to see the gap. That's why he'd been preparing. He'd stopped taking hits 3 weeks earlier, sensed something was off. The dealers had been nervous, asking more questions. The underground networks felt tighter, more paranoid. Now he knew why. He watched the grainy footage of himself on the news. It looked like him, but also like nobody. The disguises had worked. The facial recognition had failed, but it was only a matter of time before someone connected the dots. On the third day after the news broke, Ethan packed a single backpack, cash, fake IDs he'd prepared months ago, a burner phone, nothing else. He looked around his tiny room one last time. 6 months ago, he'd been nobody, a broke dropout delivering food and drowning in debt. Now he was a ghost about to disappear again. He drove his Honda to a parking garage in downtown Las Vegas, left the keys in the ignition, the doors unlocked. Someone would steal it within hours, eliminating another trace. He walked to the Greyhound station and bought a ticket to Phoenix using cash and a fake name. On the bus, watching Las Vegas disappear in the rear window, Ethan felt something he hadn't felt in months. Relief. The obsession was finally over. It took the FBI 4 months to find him. The break came from an unexpected source. Vegas Vince, the first dealer Ethan had ever sold to, got picked up on an unrelated charge. Money laundering for a different operation. When the FBI agents mentioned the casino chip heist during his interrogation, Vegas Vince's eyes went wide. Wait, that guy, the dropout? Holy shit, I bought chips from him. The FBI agent leaned forward. Tell us everything. Vegas Vince described the meetings. The parking garage, the backpack full of chips. The careful, quiet kid who never said more than necessary. He called himself Cole. I don't know if that was his real name, but that's what he went by. The FBI ran the name through their databases, cross-referenced with college dropout records in the Las Vegas area, delivery service employment records, rental agreements. They found him, Ethan Cole, 24 years old, engineering dropout from UNLV. Last known address, a room behind a mechanic's shop that had been abandoned 3 months earlier. But they had something else. One of the other dealers, when finally tracked down, remembered something specific. He mentioned Boulder once, the dealer said something about maybe going back to school. Seemed like he had some connection there. The FBI checked university towns. Boulder, Colorado kept coming up. Small city, lots of students. Easy to disappear into. They sent agents to check every low-income apartment complex, every night shift job posting, every place a young guy with cash but no references might end up. On January 14th, 4 months after the manhunt began, 2 FBI agents knocked on the door of a small apartment on the north side of Boulder. Ethan answered the door in sweatpants and a t-shirt. He'd been sleeping. It was 6 a.m. He looked at the badges, looked at the agents' faces, and his shoulders dropped. Not surprise, not fear, just resignation. Ethan Cole? The lead agent asked. Agent Martinez, according to her badge. Yeah, Ethan said quietly. You're under arrest for theft, fraud, and conspiracy. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. I know, Ethan interrupted. I know my rights. He didn't run, didn't resist, just stood there while they handcuffed him, calm, almost relieved that it was finally over. They searched his apartment, found $12,000 in cash hidden in a hollowed-out book, a fake ID, a burner phone. But that was it. The rest, the millions he'd stolen, was gone, hidden in storage units across 3 states, most of which they'd never find. Over the next 6 weeks, the FBI tracked down some of it, $12 million in cash recovered from various locations, storage units rented under fake names, safety deposit boxes, bank accounts in different states. The rest, $40 million, had vanished into the underground economy, spent, laundered, distributed through networks that left no paper trail. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Ethan's lawyer, a public defender named Richard Moss, did his best. He argued that Ethan had exploited a flaw in the casino system, not broken into anything, that he hadn't hacked computers or threatened anyone, that he'd simply walked through a procedural gap the casinos had left wide open through their own negligence. My client is a 24-year-old college dropout, Moss said during closing arguments. He didn't use weapons. He didn't use violence. He used his mind. He noticed something nobody else saw and acted on it. The casino's security failures are not his responsibility. The prosecution disagreed. Mr. Cole systematically stole $52 million over 6 months. The prosecutor said, her voice sharp. He forged documents. He wore disguises. He deceived security personnel. He knew exactly what he was doing was illegal, and he did it anyway. This wasn't curiosity. This was calculated, premeditated theft on a massive scale. The jury deliberated for 4 hours, guilty on all counts. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s named Judge Catherine Reynolds, looked down at Ethan from the bench. "Mr. Cole," she said, "you're clearly an intelligent young man. You understood complex security systems. You executed a sophisticated plan with remarkable precision. But intelligence without ethics is just cunning. And cunning used for theft is still crime." She paused, letting the words sink in. "You systematically stole $52 million over 6 months. You deceived security personnel. You forged documents. You sold stolen property. The fact that you exploited a procedural flaw rather than breaking a lock doesn't make it legal. It just makes you clever. And I've sent plenty of clever people to prison." Ethan stood there, hands clasped in front of him, expressionless. "The casinos have failures in their systems," Judge Reynolds continued. "That's true. But your response to discovering that flaw wasn't to report it. It was to exploit it for personal gain. That's not ingenuity. That's theft." She sentenced him to 18 years in federal prison with possibility of parole after 12. Ethan's parents were in the courtroom. His mother cried. His father sat stone-faced, staring at his son like he was looking